The Boston Bruins are due for one big player to have a breakout season, and we're going to be breaking down who this is and this newest addition in Viktor Arvidsson here in this video. We're also going to be going over what the next captain is going to be looking like for the Boston Bruins as a new report from Charlie McAvoy has come out. We're going to be breaking it all down in this video, and I want to get your guys' opinion here in the comments below as well, with a lot of interesting stuff that we do have here to bring in this video. So be sure to stick around to the end to discuss the captaincy as well. Before we do jump into this video, though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. Ladies and gentlemen, I know there's not too much going on in the cycle for the Boston Bruins right now, but we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, looking at all the very interesting things with the Boston Bruins. And if you're looking to stay up to date with this team here throughout the summer, be sure to hit that sub button. We're on the road to 8K, and we're about a third of the way there from 7. And your support's been absolutely incredible as of late. We appreciate all you guys watching these videos right now, but we need to jump straight into this. And I wanted to pull up, first of all, the offense, because I feel like there's been one glaring hole that we've been looking at throughout this season in Viktor Arvidsson. Since being acquired in via trade, I should say, ahead of free agency, there's been a lot of interesting things going on about would the Bruins be looking for another second-line right winger. That's something that I've mentioned here in the videos that, hey, this is probably an opening, but at this point right now and at this juncture, it does not seem like this Boston Bruins team is going out to make any more major additions just yet. If they do, we think we're going to be waiting until around the beginning of this season. And there's been a few names who kind of floating around out there, but when we're looking at right now, Viktor Arvidsson seems to be the player that's readily available for the second-line right wing heading into this season for the Boston Bruins. And taking a deeper dive into him, as you know, as I mentioned as well, not too much news going in, so we're missing this Bruins team. I want to go take a look at our deeper dive, our new additions. I noticed with Viktor Arvidsson something that I don't think a lot of people have recognized before, that he was a very, very solid player and quite underrated a couple of years ago. And when going to the Edmonton Oilers, now with this Boston Bruins team, it seems like he's lined up for a very successful season. And that's what I wanted to touch here on in this video, because everything that he's really brought to this team and is going to bring to this team, I should say instead, is going to be a major impact from what the Bruins had last year going throughout that quite lackluster season. Now, I first wanted to go up into kind of the stats as well as the contract and cap hits throughout his years with the Nashville Predators, the 3 years with the LA Kings, and that 1 year with the Edmonton Oilers last year. And when we do take a look, we see some very good seasons there. In 27-18, there being the big one, 16-17, 17-18, and even going to 18-19, you see him there, 61 points, 48 points, bit of a drop-off there, but once again, back with the LA Kings, 59 points. Then the 18 games last year, the year prior to last year with the LA Kings, 18 games played, and 67 last year and 27 points. That was the worst season of his career for a full-time NHLer. Without, early on in his career or whatnot, in the middle of his career during those COVID years. But going into this season now with the Boston Bruins, he's been given that chance with the, that he had with the LA Kings. Come into a lineup now that the offense looking pretty good. A team not really known to have extreme firepower, but a lot of pretty good players. And I would even say the Boston Bruins are in a better instance now with a guy like David Pastrnak. And going into the season as well, back to kind of the lines that we're looking at, having a pair with Pavel Zacha and Casey Mittelstadt, there's a lot of controversy going on about this second line. Whether or not Pavel Zacha will be traded, whether or not Casey Mittelstadt will be traded, whether or not Viktor Arvidsson will be on the second line or not. And I think that this line right now is something that a lot of people are not expecting to be a good line, a solid line, even a line at all, especially with people coming in here now and going towards the season with a lot of younger players now that are going to be coming into this team throughout this season. But looking at what he's been doing and what his contract is in the final year of his deal, he knows that he's in the contract year. If he don't want to be kind of down back in that $2 million number, prior to what he's been in all of his contracts just about, he needs to have a very good season. So really, all of these points are really adding up to be a season that Viktor Arvidsson will want to make sure he is his best at when it comes down to being a contract year with a new team, and also having that level of kind of, just a new team, new surroundings. It feels like that's what he's been needing since leaving this Edmonton Oilers team. And we saw with the Oilers, wasn't really great there. Had some, shines of what he could be, but just wasn't it. Wasn't there with that team, but with the Nashville Predators, with the LA Kings, where he played his own role, rather than kind of being not just in the shadow of some other players, but not really relied upon. This is going to be a big season for him coming into it. I wanted to pull up his stats from this season in specific, going over 67 games played, 27 points. As I mentioned, probably one of the worst years of his career, but when you're looking at the time on ice as well, 14 minutes, 60 seconds, third line minutes, even I would argue sometimes fourth line minutes on that Edmonton Oilers team, but a 60% Corsi has really shown that his defense has been keeping up to pace with what he needs to be if he wants to be a full-time NHLer here in this league. And I'm thinking that right now, Viktor Arvidsson is due for a big turnaround. So I want to know what you guys think here as well in the comments below, because when we're kind of diving into all of this, we're kind of looking at everything that Viktor Arvidsson is bringing and what we kind of expected to see him bring heading into next season. He's going to be a guy that a lot of people, I think, will be genuinely surprised by. And a breakout seems to be coming for him, at least due to, the kind of season he had last year. It will be much better than that, and I'm willing to put that in the books. But I'm excited to see Viktor Arvidsson heading into this year. And we got to keep an eye on everybody else as well, because we know this Bruins team won't be very similar to what it was last year. A lot of new faces, and some of these new faces may be some very exciting ones for Bruins fans. But one more thing I did want to pull up before we do jump into our next topic, talking about the captaincy for this upcoming Bruins season, what Charlie McAvoy had to say. I wanted to pull up the projection for Viktor Arvidsson's next contract, and I think this is what's really going to light a fire under him. And when we take a look at it from AFP Analytics, they have projected a 2-year, $3.99 million deal. So he's currently sitting at $4 million on his contract right now, projected to get $7K less. But, in that instance, and kind of putting this into perspective, this contract projection is lower than what his current contract is. And if the season that he had last year is going to be any bit reminiscent of this coming season, he is going to be seeing this number drop significantly. And a lot of teams will not be willing to pay him $4 million. So if he wants to see a contract that's similar to what he's making right now, Viktor Arvidsson needs to have a good season. I think that's what's really going to kind of spark him to be in that kind of mindset that he was in his career years with Nashville and LA. So I want to know what you guys think about that. But we do need to jump into our next topic here. And I want to go over what Charlie McAvoy had to say regarding the captaincy of the Boston Bruins and what he's been hearing thus far. And this is what he had to say. Going into this year, we're both going to have A's talking about him and David Pastrnak, and says, that's what I know. I don't think there's any fire under them to do anything with that. And guess what? That's totally fine. So Charlie McAvoy has pretty much spilled the beans here on what's going to be the case heading into next year for this Boston Bruins team regarding the captaincy. And I think this is something that we all really expected. I think that if there were to be a captain named, it would be one of those two. But personally, I didn't think we were going to see a captain to start the year, especially after, coming off a Brad Marchand trade. We saw, a little half of the last season where David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy really split captain duties. I feel like they always have done that, though, even with Brad Marchand there. But now going into this year with no captain, they're going to be not just fighting for a spot, because obviously it's not going to be, a fight regarding it. I think either of them will be happy to have it, and I think either would be happy to see the other guy have it. But going into this year, I think we're going to see a real kind of big step up from both of these players, not just on the ice, but also in the locker room, as we have been over the past few years, and also just kind of taking the lead of this. We know that these guys are the team leaders at this point, especially now with them being really the longest tenured Bruins on this roster. Going into this year, they have a lot to kind of work on with a lot of these younger players, and I'm excited to see how this goes. I'm not really in rush for a captain. I know it's going to be one of these two, and I think that whoever it is, I'm going to be completely content with. I'm going to be completely happy with. But I really want to see them just focus on this team next year, not someone being a captain, not someone focusing on their point total. I want to see them focus on growing this team and getting out of this rebuild as soon as possible. And I think just one more thing I wanted to pull up before this is kind of the comparison between the set of players and David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy. Just I say a few games, but 150 game kind of total game separation. Really, to me, I see David Pastrnak being this next captain, and I want to know what you guys think here in the comments below as well. But when just going to look at this, I really wanted to point out the games played, the tenure. I don't really care about points. I don't care about penalty minutes. I don't care about anything else here. But the games played was really the big thing in my mind that I'm seeing who's going to be kind of, following each other's lead. And I want to just pull that up. But one more thing before we do finish this off, and once again, I do want to know what you guys think of who the next captain will be in the comments below. But as you probably saw a moment ago, David Pastrnak is really liking what he's seeing from James Hagens after, of course, that assist that we saw. And, I think that Scott McLaughlin put it as well. The reaction to that James Hagens pass. And Connor Ryan also tweeting out, David Pastrnak likes what he sees so far from James Hagens. This is just a very exciting, thing to see, especially when we're heading into this year. David Pastrnak watching his future teammate, James Hagens is going to be a very helpful guy for his career and heading into the next few years. And I think he's just ready to see it, excited to see it, and kind of excited to see the development that a lot of these players in Boston College are going to get this season. But that is all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.